the campaign, remember, this is the campaign that's coming. It hasn't really fully begun. There are studies that suggest this is not even only about politics, but that it began with COVID, when I'm sure you remember the news was constant and it was scary. And some people, after watching it for however long, weeks or months, began to tune away and say, maybe I don't need to do this regularly. And that, I'm telling you tonight, is part of the context for the Biden campaign breaking precedent to jumpstart the earliest ever presidential debate. It's next week. It's the first summer debate ever. It's an event that will break through on TV and the internet to a nation that may not even realize this is happening until it happens next Thursday. Now, there's a political context for that as well. The Biden campaign is betting they will benefit from revving up election mode earlier. There are Democrats who think that the way the Biden campaign is focused on Trump as only an autocrat could be a losing strategy, especially as voters are worried about inflation and the economy. And Biden's campaign is seeking a more direct contrast to Trump on a stage, both of them on those policies. And they think that may help Biden more than this current glare that is often on Biden alone, and that memories of Trump's actual leadership or leadership failures and style may fade. As for the debating, both candidates are rusty. That's not a criticism of either of them. It's actually just true. They haven't debated in a long time. The president, of course, Biden doesn't have to debate. He basically became the party's nominee again. Trump skipped his own party's debates, figuring he'd win without them, and he did. In fact, I can just remind you, these candidates have only debated once in the last 7 years, and that was with each other. And a lot's happened since then. Now, Joe Biden has more overall experience debating, as you can see if you check the vault.
The United States economy has to be revitalized, not just for the sake of America, but for the sake of the whole world.
I do have a record of significant accomplishment. I have a track record of being able to cross over and get things done.
I have 35 years in public office. People can judge who I am.
Guess what? A lot of people died, and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
A little memory lane there. Now, for Donald Trump, debates have served him, whether you like him or not. He has been effective when he has used them to go on offense, to be mean, to be even petty. But they also did not save his presidency when he had that debate against Biden.
I never attacked him on his look, and believe me, there's plenty of subject matter right there. A little marker, Lion Ted.
No puppet. And it's pretty clear.
You're the puppet.
So we will have this high-stakes moment for both candidates in this very specific context I told you about, that the Biden campaign wants to start this thing earlier, which means it's not going perfectly yet for them, and that the last time these folks did face off, again, you could say Biden won the debate or the election, but whatever happened, it was on the road to Donald Trump losing, and that's when he was the incumbent. Now, we have a very special panel to start off our show tonight. I'm thrilled to tell you back on MSNBC is Abby Huntsman. You may know her as a former co-host of The View and a co-host of ours right here on MSNBC. And we are joined by Obama campaign veteran Shay Combs. Dory, welcome to both of you.
It's good to be here, to be back.
Great to have you guys. Shay, we will get to you in a moment.
Abby, that intro specifically for me. I've been home as a mom for 3 years, totally news deprived.
Yeah, you feel like that?
Fatigued.
Does it resonate?
Absolutely. And I think there's so many people out there. I remember sitting at a different studio on Al Sharpton's show, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago, talking about Donald Trump and being crooked. And here we are again, running for whatever time this is. Probably he could very well win.
He could win. This is, third. This will be his third race.
But the debate's really an interesting, because I think that debates in general don't have a tremendous impact. It's fun to watch. But I think in this case, it's going to be a little bit different. I think the stakes are higher for President Biden than they are for Trump.
Well, I noticed your eyes were sitting here on set together as we showed the Biden through the years, right? You see that on the one hand, he's been underestimated. He didn't just last this long and beat Donald Trump for nothing. But on the other hand, the question that he faces now is he at that level or not from the past debates he won? Because it looks different when you go back.
That's the question that a lot of people have. And as you said, we're a week away. So we're too close for anyone to pull out, because a lot of people are wondering, are both going to show up? Are they actually going to show up on that
we've heard
stage,
that about
right?
people saying that about Trump.
And if Biden pulls out, I think there are real concerns about his mental health. Why did he show up? And if Trump pulls out, he's gaming the system, of course. But
well,
as I
don't think Biden's jumping out because they engineered this earlier. They want this badly.
But they've got to be so nervous, Ari, because there are moments where you do question, is he fully aware of what's going on and what he's saying? And I do think that is a concern for people. You look back at the last election between the two of them, and it wasn't that people voted for Biden because they were so enthusiastic and excited. It was, we are so exhausted by the Trump years. We are so over this. We want something else. And so 4 years later, he's got to provide something different. We have short-term memories. I don't remember what I ate for breakfast this morning. People forget how tiring those Trump years were. So now they're in a place where they're like, who's the better of the two? Now I'm not really sure. So there's a big chunk of the population that will be watching this debate and making that decision. And as you said in your intro, a lot of these people, at the end of the day, they vote with their emotions. It's their pocketbook. It's not the latest Trump trial, right? It is not the latest gaffe. It is, how am I feeling about my life? I'm concerned about immigration. Whatever the topic is for them, that's what they're going to vote on. And you only go to the polls. Growing up in a political family and being in campaigns, it's always the same thing. You have to be motivated to get out to vote. You have to be excited about that person. I think the Biden administration should focus, to your point, first and foremost, on how do you get people enthusiastic again?
Yeah, how do you
get excited for me?
Yeah. Well, so, Che, how about that point that Abby raises, which I think is fair as well, that the memory, or even for some, nostalgia, right now has benefited Trump. And the Biden folks think that next week they can change that, have a more direct contrast.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the idea that this nostalgia has benefited Trump, I think this is kind of a false talking point. Because if you look at it, Trump is basically where he's always been. He's about 40%, 41% of the polls. He's probably going to get 45% at the end of this whole thing. His ceiling, I would say, is 47%, which is what he got last time and still lost. Trump's number is fixed. The issue is that Biden is losing so much to independents. He's losing so much to third-party independent bids and to people who are undecided. That's really where the race is. It's between Biden and the third parties and those voters who are looking for an alternative beyond Trump and Biden. This debate allows Joe Biden to make a sale to them.
Interesting.
That's why the debate's going to be so important and why I think the stakes are higher for Biden this time than it is for Trump. Yeah.
Well, I want to do something we like to do around here, which is tap what's going on out in the country. More people are using TikTok than even Google to look at things. Abby, I happen to know you have kids, so maybe you're familiar with TikTok.
They don't use TikTok.
They will.
I'm going to keep that off.
You're going to keep them off. Good. Screen limits are great. But Che, again, there's folks who say, oh, this age thing, it's unfair. You don't want to talk about it. But Reagan faced it. Trump faces it because he's over retirement age, as is the current president. So we want to take a look at how this is echoing online. Here we go.
Over 75% of voters want maximum age limit for elected officials, and this is from Democrats and Republicans.
Bill Clinton, who was president through all of the 1990s, is still younger than Joe Biden, the current president, and Donald Trump.
Finally ready to admit that the Democrats are not the lesser of two evils, but in fact the other side of the same coin?
The United States is so cooked for the elections this year, it's not even funny anymore.
Che, you've worked in campaigns. You have to deal with people where they are in an effective campaign. TV and internet, if you want to just change the channel, go ahead. But the people will still be there whether you're listening to them or not. And I make a point to show young people and others who are concerned about this with two aging candidates who we have no reason to think are going to change. That's kind of the choice. And yet it seems that sometimes the Biden campaign is getting hit harder for this. Your thoughts on all of that? And is it important for the campaigns to keep an eye on what people are posting and saying on TikTok?
Yeah, I think the Biden campaign is being hit much harder by this, and it's because of the visuals. You know, I make fun of it. A lot of late night comedians make fun of it. Donald Trump colors his hair. He uses that fake suntan. He does all those sorts of things. But I got news for you. On some deep level, it actually works. He does actually look younger because he uses all that makeup, all that hair coloring, all that imagery to make himself look younger.
Yeah, maybe I should try it. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, it unfortunately has an impact, and it's an impact on people who don't really follow the news and are just seeing the visual image, which is why this debate is so important. It's very important that Joe Biden be out there and speak extemporaneously for a good long period of time in a rational, logical manner, and people can see it. And then they can see the contrast with Donald Trump, who sounds very much like an old man with old ideas.
I agree with that in large part, but you mentioned Reagan in that first part, and he was older. But he had something different that Biden doesn't have. He had this ability to be inspirational. Remember the Morning in America, right? You remember those ads with the sun coming up, and it was, you felt something. And when he spoke, it was like, you felt like he was going to do something for this country. He was going to make your life better. He made you believe that. And that is the gift of politicians. And I think that's what Biden is lacking, and what they've got to focus on, bigger than just the debate, is how do we inspire people? How do we convince people? And that's going to come from him. You got to talk directly to the American people and convince them, this is why I'm better. Here's the work that I've done that has made your lives better. But it all comes down to communication and your ability to connect with people. That's what it is. It's an emotional choice at the end of the day.
And it is emotional. And finally, Che, let's put up the rules here again. It will be a different style debate. People remember the crowds and this and that. They remember the over-talking. This is more like a high school debate where the mics will actually be literally turned off. There will be no audience. Props are not allowed. And they'll do the normal coin flip. How much do those rules, which was more important in the Biden campaign, matter in people hearing what you just suggested, which is extemporaneous from both candidates?
Yeah, I think it matters a great deal, because I think the second rule, no studio audience, is a huge advantage for Joe Biden. Donald Trump feeds off of the audience. He makes jokes that are completely inane, that have nothing to do with any topic. He will go into these sort of rants that have the ability to entertain an audience and elicit a response. And he feeds off of that. Without that studio audience, I think that's a huge problem for Donald Trump. I also think having the mics muted also hurts Trump, because his ability to show dominance over Biden by talking over him is now fully gone.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually.
I think it's a problem for both of them, not having an audience.
Because the energy dips?
Well, it's a long period of time to be standing there at their age. I mean, I'm not just saying that, you know, we're all going to be that age at some point, but even we have a hard time standing there for a long time speaking. And I agree that the audience gives you this energy, but if you are having a moment of, you know, your brain forgets what you're trying to talk about, it's more awkward because it's silent.
Because it's dead silent.
Yeah,
you know, it's interesting.
And that's tough for both of them.
And how it's going to play, and we've seen this online too, like short clips matter so much, and I mentioned this to inform folks, but it is going to be different. It is different than a lot of the other debates we've seen, and how that plays out, we're going to track. I want to thank you, Che, for being here. Abby Huntsman has agreed to stick around. We have something special by the end of the hour, since we don't always get to see you. Coming up, what Dr. Fauci told us about Trump's handling of COVID and subverting the rule of law. Trump allies like Steve Bannon writing it down before he goes to prison. But first, the Arrested Development test for our economy. We'll explain when we're back in 90 seconds.
I have type 2 diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take once daily Jardiance at each day's start. As time went on, it was easy to see I'm lowering my A1C.
Jardiance works 24/7 in your body to flush out some sugar. And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardiance can lower the risk of cardiovascular death, too.
Serious side effects may include ketoacidosis that may be fatal, dehydration that can lead to sudden worsening of kidney function, and genital yeast or urinary tract infections. A rare life-threatening bacterial